Hello to the next video in the series where I'm talking about some of my D&D stories. This comes from a game that I ran recently. But before we get started, if you could leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below, or potentially subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, without further ado. So, in D&D, people can often make poor decisions. It's one of the perks, really. And the story I'm about to tell is about one such moment. It comes from a homebrew campaign I was running where honestly quite a lot of different things went down, ranging from undead dinosaur attack, to shady dealings with the Fey Court, to ancient forgotten magical research facilities, which so happens to be the setting for today's tale. This was an underground research facility housing horrors of a fallen empire, sitting in the capital of a now undead city, ruled by a surprisingly restrained and amicable vampire aristocracy, with whom the party had managed to secure somewhat cordial relations. Well, most of the party at least. Our resident paladin had a desire to go full Arthas on the whole city. Fortunately, they were persuaded down from this position, and the resulting peace deal was celebrated with the party. And the party was then invited to a party. The good and the great from all walks of life were in attendance there. The king of the vampires, the queen of the Fey courts, several famed warriors of legend, a small convocation of liches quietly plotting in the corner. In fact, some of the gods had even sent avatars to quietly join in the festivities, and to have a quick chat with the party. Now it's worth noting, the party have got a bit of history with the gods at this point. Having freed said deities from an eternal vigil over an invading demon lord, as well as currently being on a quest themselves to salvage the primary goddess of life and nature. Hence, they're taking something of a direct interest in the party's actions. Thus, they had decided they needed a chat. The god of justice and wisdom politely informed the party that the facility they were going to was very old and very dangerous, and within it is something they must avoid at all costs. There is an ancient evil book. This book records the nature and power of all wicked and twisted powers to be found across the world. It's a distillation of all the wickedness that the mortal races could achieve. And, worst of all, it wants to be used by worthy hands. It's ancient enough to predate the gods of this world. In no uncertain terms, they warn the party, leave it be. It's not why they're there, and it's very dangerous, and better left buried. So, whilst adventuring deep in the underground lab, when they come across a skeleton, clutching a dark tome, radiating a palpably wicked energy, and when the paladin's senses screamed that this book was true evil, they of course turned to the rest of the party and said, "Hear me out here." Now it's worth noting, said paladin wasn't always a paladin. In fact, they came to it later in life. Previously, they were a warlock, bound to life and service by the whims of their inscrutable patron. Said patron was also literally keeping them alive. However, as time had gone by, they had gained power, and strength enough to free themselves from this curse, being presented with a new option of serving a lost god of this world, serving as their champion. Thus, they became a paladin, striving against the threats of the outer stars. Much like their old patron, for example. So, when said paladin looked at this evil tome and said, "Hear me out here," I had a pretty good idea where this was going. The rest of the party stuck to their instructions and didn't touch the book. However, our friend decided that they had a cunning plan. They would use containers and cloth to move the book. No contact required, they thought. Then they can read it at leisure later and use it to help deal with all the evils in the world. And so, with bated breath, I waited as they explained the process of how they were moving it using all these mundane items to move this semi-sentient, wicked book. So I just had them roll a quick sleight of hand check to see if they could avoid the book's attempts to respond to this treatment. Alas, trying to handle nuclear waste with a pair of rubber gloves is a poor decision, and they did not succeed. Now, the party had already been in a few fights prior to this point, so they weren't in the best of shape. So, as the GM, I explained they had a choice. Immediately give into the book's power and be twisted by its evil, or consequences. They chose consequences. So I rolled a little and explained that the evil energies of the book surge into them for a solid 10d8 damage. I paused. Oh, wait, my bad. You're a paladin, aren't you, friend? Oh no. Hugh intakes a breath around the table. Make that 20d8. Because, of course, this wicked book has a particular vendetta against paladins and clerics. At which point they were reduced to 0 hit points. Now, normally, not so much of an issue. They were at the level where these things can be resolved. However, this book has a clause in its effects. Any creature reduced to 0 hit points by this effect is immediately slain and its soul is stored inside the book, preventing any resurrection until it is released. I didn't think this would come up, and I was briefly stunned. The party was also stunned. I'd literally warned them against this, and I quickly checked the criteria for freeing said party member. A realization spread to me. This PC was very, very dead. For the record, the criteria are as follows. Should you wish to save a soul from this book, all you need to do is find 100 good-aligned clerics or religious figures, and in a self-sacrificing ritual, each of them must willingly choose to offer themselves to the book to free that one soul. However, if any of them are unwilling, in any way, shape, or form, even with a doubt or regret, the ritual fails and all souls are forfeit. So at this point, all that was left was a sword, a pair of smoking boots, and a party in shock. And a GM also in shock. It goes to show that there is no force greater than a player who is truly willing to screw around and find out. And in this case, we certainly found out that we can make some terrible decisions.